I was playing some games on my Windows XP as one does in 2025 when my brother suggested that I make a video on it. And for once, it wasn't a bad idea, surprisingly. The only reason I had even booted up this old OS was because I'm currently in the middle of planning a little something to celebrate my 1,000 subscriber milestone. Well, actually now it's over 1,000, so thank you guys for taking the time to watch my videos and listen to my blabbering. To be honest, I didn't expect anyone other than myself to watch these videos, and for that, I am super grateful for those who leave a comment or you guys who even lurk around. It's been really nice having a community where I can play games and help people rediscover stuff they've forgotten. And speaking of games, let's talk about the pre-installed Windows XP games today and see how they hold up. So to find these games, you simply had to click on the start button, then all programs, and finally games, of course. Once you do that, you will be presented with a variety of games that you can play. Unfortunately, some of them need to be connected to the internet, so those were out of the question, but that's okay because many of them were still playable. Let's start with the one I remember the best, 3D Pinball. I think this was actually one of the very first games I played when my parents first introduced me to the computer at the ripe old age of 3. At that time, we had this huge, bulky computer monitor from the 90s, and oh my god, turning it on took forever. First, we had to boot up the modem, then the computer, which took another 10 minutes, and once that was finally booted up, I had to wait another 20 minutes for the screen to load. It was definitely a different time back then because my attention span now could never. I would most likely be hitting that computer monitor after the 5-minute mark. Anyways, back to what I was saying, 3D Pinball. So when you first open the game, you are greeted with this ominous black screen that says 3D Pinball on it before being blasted in the ears with the pinball machine load-up sound. Ah, how nostalgic. As a kid, I would just mash every button on the keyboard because I didn't know which one controlled which, but now I am proud to say that I finally learned the controls. You launch the pinball by holding down the spacebar. Then you control the right and left flippers on the bottom with the Z and slash key respectively. You can also bump the table with the arrow up, period, and X key. However, that was pretty useless because whenever I did that, it would just stun lock my controls. Therefore, I no longer mash all the keys on my keyboard. Instead, it's only 2 now. Apparently, the proper way to play this is to aim the ball at the direction of the blue arrows, but as you can see, I kind of just did my own thing. Maybe in the future, I will play it properly. Next up is Minesweeper. Let me just tell you that this is one intense game. The premise is you have to click on the tiles without activating the bombs. If you manage to successfully avoid the bomb, then the tile will give you a number. The numbers tell you how many bombs are touching that tile. This includes diagonally as well. One neat thing about this game is that every time you click on a tile, the little guy at the top makes an O face. Unfortunately, if you do accidentally click on a bomb, the little guy dies too, so do your best to stay alive. Also, one more thing, this game has 3 difficulties: beginner, intermediate, expert, and custom. For the custom one, you have the option to choose how many rows and columns you want. I didn't play the other ones because the beginner level was already difficult enough. I think one game just took me like 30 minutes to beat. So yeah, I was very well satisfied with my victory at the end, and I didn't want to push it. Now, on to the card games. Low-key, I feel like I am in my geriatric era because I had so much fun playing these. Well, except for this Hearts card game. Let's start with that one. I have no clue how this works other than the fact that the goal is to be the player with the least amount of points. I was paired with 3 AIs for this game, and I came in dead last for both rounds. How embarrassing. I tried to search up the instructions on how to play this online, but it made no sense at all, so I just called it a day and spammed whatever card I could onto the center. I just knew I had to match the symbol with whatever symbol was in the middle, and apparently you're not supposed to use your hearts or something. Yeah, this game was pretty confusing, and I did not enjoy it that much because of how complicated the directions were. So let's just move on to the fun card games, such as Solitaire. Originally, I had no clue how to play this, but then my brother taught me and it became my newest addiction. Basically, you are given 7 piles of cards in the beginning, and your goal is to stack them all on top the 4 slots in the corner. To do so, you have to stack them in ascending order from ace to king. As for the 7 piles, you can move them around as long as they're in descending order and alternating in color. If the pile has no facing up cards, you can flip 1 card over. Also, if you only have 6 piles, you can make a new one as long as the first card is a king. Now, in the left corner, you will be given a stock pile you can shuffle through. However, you can only see 3 cards at a time. If you take a card out from the stock pile, it gets reshuffled again, so make sure that all of your card piles are in descending order before taking a card out. I know this sounds very complicated, but once you start playing it, Solitaire is actually a very straightforward game. My tip for it is to try to get the kings on the bottom of the pile. That way, it will be easier later on to see which cards you need from the stockpile. Though, I can't guarantee that is the best method because it took me 3 hours to beat 1 game. At least it was worth it because you get this cool animation at the end. The other card game is Free Cell. The premise is similar to that of Solitaire's, but a little easier this time. Once again, you have to organize the piles in descending order while alternating the colors. And in the corner, you have to stack the cards in ascending order from ace to king. But this time, you are able to see all the cards, and in the right-hand corner, you're able to store 4 cards to use whenever later on. Honestly, I love that you can see all the cards this time because it saves the guesswork. That was the main reason it took me so long to beat Solitaire. I had to keep track of what cards were in the stockpile in order to strategize my next move. Plus, the ability to save your cards for later was really helpful, especially when I needed to move the piles around. And another key difference in this one is that instead of an animation at the end, you get a jump scare by the king. You see, I was just minding my own business and moving my cards around when all of a sudden the king, who was this tiny little figure in the middle, popped up in my face. I didn't even realize I had one until I read the notification. Also, he looks like he's up to something with that smug look of his. I wonder what it is. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'm better off not knowing. Let's just move on. The last and final game in this review is Spider Solitaire. Fittingly, the back of the cards have spiders on it. So if you have arachnophobia, I suggest you look away for this game. In this one, there are 3 difficulties. Of course, I chose the easiest one because I was getting card fatigue at this point. I mean, you would too if you played 4 hours of Solitaire. And like the previous 2 games, you have to stack the cards in descending order. Only this time, you don't have to worry about alternating them in color. As for the goal, you just have to get rid of the cards. Simple enough. Only it wasn't, because whenever I didn't have the card I needed, I had to resort to the stockpile in the corner, which then messed up the order of everything. Ugh, it was such a hassle moving things back and forth. However, through some miracle, I was able to beat this game after 10,000 years. I literally reincarnated like 10 times while playing this game. But you know what? It was worth it because I got congratulated with confetti. As for how these games held up, I think they're still really fun to play despite their simplicity. Well, most of the games at least. I enjoyed how they were the right amount of difficulty for me and the little gimmicks they employed. Particularly the little guy in the Minesweeper game. Yeah, they're going to live rent-free in my mind for a little while. Besides that, the biggest draw was the fact that they didn't have an agenda to sell you something. I mean, think about it. Every game nowadays is trying to get you to buy a product, whether virtually or physically, and after playing these games, I realized how much I missed those days where the goal of the game was to beat it, not to get you to click on a link to buy merch. Sadly, with how integrated marketing is with our games and daily lives in general, we can only reminisce on a bygone era. An era where ads had not yet infiltrated every corner of the internet, and where the computer was its own separate world. With that said, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it, and if you want to see what I have in store, you are free to subscribe. This was my playthrough of the Windows XP games, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ta!